Well, it's another new day, and of course there is more Pixar news to talk about. Not coming in the likes of a new Inside Out 2 or Elio or whatever else they're working on, we're talking about the TV side of Pixar in the form of the Monsters Inc. pseudo-successor Monsters at Work. Not actually done by Pixar, Season 2 has now dropped on Disney+, and it's an interesting prompt, Monsters at Work. We had the original season back in 2021, and I wasn't that big of a fan. The whole idea is that it is actually a sequel to Monsters Inc. It's not a prequel like Monsters University was, as the industry goes to transition into laugh energy. In all of Season 1, we had our main character Tyler going through the mechanical engineering background of the factory before finally becoming a jokester at the end of the episode. Very much kind of feeling like episode 0 of the concept, since it didn't really get to any of the things you would want to see in a sequel to Monsters Inc. Season 2, however, has covered all sorts of beats that are kind of what you would expect to actually, see in Season 1. As a comparison just from Season 1 to Season 2, Season 2 is the far superior project. Not only have you had time to learn about all sorts of the new characters that get introduced, but also, you get to see the things you want to see. Mike and Sully have a much larger role this time, handling the business side of Monsters Incorporated as the new co-CEOs. And we see some other extracts, like the difficulty of trying to make general society more attuned with laugh energy rather than the screams that are the classic. It really is kind of analogous of alternative energy, renewable energy. Even though I guess in this logic, scream power is still renewable, there'll always be kids to scare, but oh well. Anyway, with Tyler established as a jokester from episode 1, we get to see his journey into what it's like to be a jokester. And with that, there are some interesting developments. Now, instead of kids just screaming and disappearing, these monsters are able to actually establish friendships with their children because they're just outright talking to them, doing their old stand-up routine or chucking donuts on their horns. It's interesting though. I've got all sorts of praises so far into this video, but I also have a whole chunk of criticisms with this series. One of the big ones that bothers me is the fact that I don't really like any of the jokester jokes. And that's kind of the point, at least early on, that Tyler's not very good at being a jokester. He's more naturally attuned to being a scarer. But even from everybody else in this entire series across the entire runtime, I don't think I saw a single joke told to a child that I thought was actually funny and would warrant a laugh. But hey, the energy is very efficient, shall we say, with it being 10 times stronger than Scream, so I guess it doesn't matter. Another more minor gripe is the fact that the children in this series look like Cocoa Melon children, and that kind of grinds my gears in a way. This is very much not a Pixar project, clearly. Look at it. It is clearly down in quality and budget, and you can kind of feel it. There is some interesting directions with writing. It's not fantastic, but you take what you can get. At the very least, the plot actually is quite interesting, as they've brought back some more callbacks from both Monsters University and Monsters Inc., as Johnny Worthington, the old university school bully, is coming back as the CEO to an alternative energy industry factory with FearCo. This is the kind of stuff you would expect to see from a sequel, and it works really, really well. The whole general plot is essentially Tyler, as a scarer, now turned jokester, is going to be convinced to join FearCo to go back to his roots and his talents to be a scarer, and then presumably by the end switch back. And that's great, except it takes 8 episodes for him to get a job offer to FearCo. This whole show is only 10 episodes long, but it just drags so horrendously. The story is fine, quaint, I like the callbacks and the establishing expansion of the world, but it's just so slow and boring that maybe it's because I saw a trailer, so I knew, hey, he's gonna become a scarer again, but why did it take you bloody 4 hours to get there? Every episode is kind of its own little pocket story. There's a sports one, there's a tour of FearCo. That's 3 separate episodes, that's 90 minutes, the length of a practical movie, already covered in those filler episodes. You've also got some other establishments, like there's a new character brought onto the mechanical team, as well as a mystery about someone sabotaging the whole Monsters Incorporated, team. There's good beats and bad beats. The idea is fine. I feel like it would have done a lot better as just like a weird spin-off movie, Because the fact that it's dragged out into 5 hours on this low budget, it just looks a little bit naff in a lot of ways. Now, it probably doesn't help that I watched this on a particular week where I was feeling pretty grumpy the whole time, so I've got a lot more cynicisms, but from what I understand from the general internet, a lot of people actually kind of like this. I think it's because it does genuinely show some expansions to the Monsters Inc. universe. But it's only fine, you know? It's not a Pixar classic. You can be attached to characters if you really want to be attached to characters, but these aren't Pixar perfect characters. And that's okay, I guess. It also, though, just covers a lot of the tropes and cliches. Maybe that works for kids' entertainment, but a whole other episode is Tyler's at a restaurant, and there's 2 parties he wants to be talking to. So he's switching between the 2, and he's changing his clothes for each of the pieces, and then sometimes the clothes mix together into a hodgepodge design. Wowee! You know, you've seen it. I've watched Robin Williams movies before. The voice acting seemed fine. I don't remember having any particular concerns about the actual performance. The animation is only cheap looking. And then as we come to the final elements of the story, spoilers if you care about Monsters at Work Season 2 already and haven't watched a trailer with it right in the middle of the thumbnail, there is another callback to the initial Monsters Inc. movie with the reintroduction of the character of Randall. Yes, of course he's stitched all in there. The perfect villain from the first movie, essentially established in the prequel movie, why not bring him back? He ends up being the mysterious saboteur, not the red herring new character, using his invisibility to handle things on the inside of the factory. They even go so far as to show the bad ending of Randall getting beaten by humans and then immediately getting saved by Worthington on the side, which I feel is a little bit of a weird retcon, but alright, sure, they wanted to keep the villains going, is fine. There is a nice sequence of the MIFT team trying to fight against Randall, and that's fun, except they then take him out in an instant soda drink that sticks him horrendously attached to something like glue. They bring back the Scream Extractor. That's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of interesting callbacks here, but it's also just kind of naff in a lot of other ways. It's a real 50-50. Like, I was thinking, if they've established that Tyler can have a whole friendship establishment with a human kid like Ben, why can't Sully go back to Boo? I know they shredded the door, and then they built it again, and then he says hi at the end of Monsters Inc. Why is he now being a CEO and avoiding Boo when they have really established that you can make them laugh and have fun and do stand-up? You know, it kind of opens questions in certain ways. The writing for this series, it isn't stellar, but it's not an insult to the series either. In a time of remakes, reboots, sequels, and IP stretching as far as the eye can see, this doesn't ruin Monsters Inc. If anything, adds a nice little flourish to Monsters University, and does some nice stuff. Roz is there doing, "You better gotta do your paperwork, Wazowski." You know, all the classic memes and lines come back. I like that most of the main visual characters you remember from the first movie are there. The guys that talk like this, they're there doing the occasional joke. It's like, it's fun, it's cool, but it's simple, you know? I wouldn't say it's worth the entire 10 episodes, but really, it's kind of a put it on the TV, switch off your brain, hey look, 5 hours have passed, and that's fine. You can see some lovely expansions of don't mix scream and laugh energy together. It corrupts the energy into an explosion. Nice. Whilst also, the evil team factory is just evil for the sake of it, and therefore they're not going to try and power the world on a backup of Scream by being good. They're just going to steal laughter power because they are bad. It's fine. It's no Pixar nuance. It's just fine. I want to say that this is terrible, it's just another waste of time Monsters Inc. crap thing, but it's not. There are decent elements to it, and I can see people really enjoy it, so maybe I'm just having a bit of a naff week. But it certainly helped to pass a time in the lead up to the next Pixar modern theatrical full-length classic that is Inside Out 2. That's all I've got to say for Monsters at Work Season 2, a little bit of an in-and-out adventure. So on that note, I'll be ending it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this quick little ramble. Do let me know your thoughts on Monsters at Work. Was there really specific extensions of the universe you'd like to explain and talk about? Because they did some fun stuff sometimes. I'd love to get the discussion going over on our Discord or our YouTube comments, and I shall see you in a little bit.